So, guys, this is part two. I hope that this works. I'm going to pray that this works, that I'll be able to get this uploaded. They will not let me go live. They've messed with my live. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to try to get this information out as much as I can, the best I can with the time that I have today, because I need to get this all done and then I need to go. And I will never ever see this society ever again because nobody has ever protected me. Nobody's ever made sure that I was safe and none of that. So let's get on with this and let's do this. So age 10 to 12 was the beginning of this breeding and postpartum depression stuff that occurred. So this was where I was at the part I wanted to get to where I actually stopped off at, which right here was okay. Let's see. Yeah, right here. Okay, this is where I was. So I was in the second paragraph. So I became more and more depressed living in poverty with an abuser, not having a normal home, family, and father. I was also being bred secretly at night and my eggs harvested, which was disrupting my hormones. I was most certainly bred under the Bush administration. And the more and more I was used to breed these half reptilian babies, my hormones were distorted, leading to severe depression. I didn't know I was experiencing postpartum depression, though. This is how they were able to slap the label of bipolar onto me. On top of me also being driven 24 hours a day by a mentally ill mother. I had to hear all about her work drama as well as she would bring me into her altercations, like when she brought me over to my dad's house so she can argue and make a big scene. I had to watch from the car and then she could talk to me about it all the way on the way home nonstop. So my mother brought a lot of drama into my life consistently, a lot of hate just nonstop. I hated living with my mother. I always dreamed of a rescuer, or I dreamed that I was white. I dreamed that I had a nice home and family. I hated her evil attitude. She would just talk shit about anybody walking across the street, just like, oh my God, like look at her big butt, or look like she just really, really negative. And that's all I was taught was negativity. She would talk about like their body, say like really mean stuff that was just so unnecessary. And I always knew this wasn't right. I knew that this wasn't. And she would just be like, well, it's okay to talk about behind people's back. It's not a big deal. That don't matter. Like, that's nothing. Like, just, it's not a big deal. Like she just said, like, as long as they ain't hearing what you're saying. Um, so I did not take these wicked teachings. I had to unlearn a lot as an adult from a lot she taught me. I hated being black like every day. I made a friend across the street in my grandma's apartment complex, and she was a black girl with a younger brother, and she was also being abused by a single bitter black mother too. And she was abused worse, and she had like a black eye, and my mother would like still punch, slap me, hurt me, and all that stuff. And like my mother made me miserable, taking her problems out on me. And like all my childhood, I thought about how like when I had kids, I was going to have kids with a white man instead of a black man like my father. I didn't want a life like this. My mother was so immature, and her abuse took a toll like on my health. So like seeing that, like I realized like wow, like there is a lot of black women that abuse their children, and I'm just gonna say that's just a fact that I went through it and I've heard about it, and yeah, so that's something. So I found out by watching that teen show Degrassi that would come on that I could like cut my risk and I could possibly kill myself to escape this awful life living with my mother. I decided to get a metal protractor used in like math class, things used for like math or whatever, and I started like cutting myself with it like the Ellie girl did. And I I was tired of living with a mother who hated me for no reason and would not stop being so evil. I thought that I would somehow maybe find a way out or even get help or support. My mother did not love me and would not hug me or show any affection. She made her show hate for me. So at age 13, this is when I was diagnosed bipolar and really the beginning of the breeding. So this was middle school. I was put into Lincoln Middle School. I guess my mother went to the school too and wanted us to all go to the school she went to, not caring whether it was fit for me or not. The school found out I was cutting, and they now contact my family, and I got sent home. My grandmother's house was in Santa Monica, so I had to wait for my grandmother to get off work. And she was crying. She said she wished she knew this was going on. She was trying to become like a therapist, a psychologist. She really wanted to get involved and took to really getting involved. She got me set up with a psychiatrist and therapist. I was taken to this psychiatrist. I had depression and was very sad. This office was a Russian office with Russian receptionists and a doctor named Dr. Michael Toll, and they spoke Russian too. This was in Culver City. So after waiting all this time to see this doctor. I sit down and my mother and grandmother are there. They instantly begin talking and telling this Dr. Tolwyn that I'm bipolar and that I most likely had it because my father had it. My grandmother was saying like basically my father was bipolar and like I looked basically like a lot of this was how I looked like my dad and took after him or something like that, I guess, or something. And then like my grandmother then adds that she's a licensed therapist and on her way to getting her degree and blah 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 blah. And so I was prescribed like risperidone, a medication to stop like paranoia, and Lexapro, an antidepressant. And like I remember the risperidone, like I was getting ringing in my ear I never had before. It was just crazy. I was never paranoid. Like I never needed any of this stuff that I was being given. I ended up stopping taking their risperidone because it was making my ears ring. I didn't feel good. The Lexapro did not help my depression and made me gain weight. Nothing helped my depression because it was environmental. I was living with a miserable, mentally ill bitch whose moods constantly changes and walking on eggshells, not knowing if I would get hit if I dare. Hold on, I gotta fix that thing. Okay, if I dare, basically speak in a tone that she believes is disrespectful, I would just get hit out of nowhere, or if I accidentally drop a drink, or you know, so I ended up gaining a lot of weight. You know, just it just was weight gain a lot, and that was from the medication, starting the especially the Lexapro that really made me gain a lot of weight. I gained about 60 pounds in a short time on this medication, but I was also being bred at the same time. So I do remember being bred at the age of 13 and these babies being removed before they got to full term. I remember having sets of twins at one point, but as I mentioned before, the most vivid memories are coming up. I saw Dr. Tolan frequently for a few years, and the wait in the office was always long with people crying and depressing music. I was given all different kinds of medications to try while he typed on a computer. At this time, my mother also got involved with another man and had my half sister, Ajali, but that was not a marriage and just a relationship that ended. So at age 16, I was covertly impregnated, and my baby was stolen by my therapist. I will never forget this day. I vividly remember it as well. I ended up getting a therapist. I'd seen another therapist and it didn't work out. It was like typical Jewish like therapist, like most of them all are. There was like no, I can't relate to you. It's not. This is just like a waste of. It was not helping me at all. But then again, just seeing like this black therapist, it was just the same thing. Just basically just listening, no real feedback, no nothing, nothing at all. It just was basically pointless. So this therapist, I guess, was like, maybe Jamaican. I don't know. Her name was Devera Jackson Garber. She had dreads or something like that. I don't know, but my parents wanted me to see her. They thought, okay, we could relate more to her. She's black or whatever, and yeah. So she had like pretty dark skin, and we one point spoke about food. She talked about like some tofu with cumin seasoning, and I like tofu at the time too. Like I like that. I guess she was also pregnant and due to have a baby soon, but that was not the case. Yeah. So I tried eating vegetarian at some point too for a little while, but I was still like overweight. I was 5'4", over 200 pounds now due to the medication. It was humiliating. I remember this one boy named Jonathan would tease me, and I guess he wanted to have sex with me too or something, because he was trying to get me to have sex with him like after school and showing me his penis and stuff, but I would not because I was saving my virginity. He lived near my grandmother's house. I ended up having a dream that I was laying down and he was having sex with me. It was really interesting because I could feel it. I could actually feel it. Like I could feel him going down on me and all that. And we were in this bed and he began having sex with me and I could feel that too. It was like a bed and it was like weird. It's kind of weird background. It seemed like there was like all these colors that were swirling around. Like, I don't know if I was abducted and drugged. I could have been a possibility because they've done that. That's what I believe that is how they possibly did this one. Because when it was I just remember being done on bed and seeing all these colors and I was like, whoa, it's crazy. So I remember just waking up and thinking it was a dream. Kind of, I think that's just what I thought. I remember really remembering this dream. But life continued on. I was 16 years old. I was in Santa Monica High School. Samo High is what it was called, where my mother went. I hated it. I was bullied, harassed. It was such a big school with like so many stairs. It was so big and I hated it. I remember always being hungry. It was like bottomless hunger. It was resulting from all the cryptic hidden pregnancies and the medications. I later learned the medication was also used to mind wipe my memories of these abductions. I was now seeing a different psychiatrist named Dr. Julia Lamb, and she was a Chinese, and she was a fucking bitch. And every time I saw her, she switched the medications, or there was some type of attitude she had, or something. I just really didn't like her. One medication, Geodon, was causing me like tardive dyskinesia, so it was making my lips go sideways. It was making my lips twitch and stuff like that. So that was a big issue there. So basically, this Dr. Julia Lamb makes it so you have to check into a mental hospital to even see her at all. So I had to spend 2 weeks in a mental hospital, and my mother actually was okay with that and allowed that when I did nothing wrong. I starved, had no food, was treated so badly. It made no sense. Later on, as an adult, my grandmother's friend Renee saw her, and she put her in a mental hospital too, and she was mad. My mother liked Dr. Julia Lamb, and she liked how, and liked to show how she liked Dr. Lamb, even though I hated her. So I would see a therapist once a week, so I was at least able to have someone to talk to and kind of get into a safe environment. Um, so I was seeing different therapists. I think after Devera left, that's what happened. I was seeing somebody else. I can't exactly remember who it was though, but yeah, something like that. But I was still getting these awful stomach aches. I had seen doctors which prescribed like medication for heartburn. Um, these were really all effects of the babies being within me that I didn't know about or realize were in me. I had no idea I was really impregnated somehow by somebody, and it was not a dream. It was a normal day after school. I went to my therapist and sat on the couch and spoke with her. Yeah, that was, oh yeah, this is Devera. Sorry, it's Devera. So about 30 minutes of speaking and into our session, like something suddenly happened to me. Like all of a sudden, I remember my stomach just going crazy and like I screamed out. I remember I couldn't move. It was like some like water just like gushed out of me. I couldn't really move. Like something, it was so crazy. So next thing I know, like she ends up pointing something at me, like a phone or whatever device. It's like a device, is what it's not a phone. It has like a bright light, and next thing I know, we're suddenly somewhere else. I was now on the bed in the ship. When I mentioned the ship, I don't know if it's a different ship each time, but I know it's like they have different rooms. It's weird. It's definitely a room with advanced medical equipment. And when you look out of the window, these little portholes, you see like space, like Black and All Stars. I was on this hospital bed surrounded by several aliens as well as Vera Jackson Garber in alien form. She looked like an alien, and her dreadlocks were now like octopus legs coming out of her head. Her face was distorted and she looked different. She was delivering the baby I had no idea I was pregnant with. I was given an epidural and I felt no pain. I didn't feel pain with the contractions or with pushing. I pushed and pushed until a baby came out. I've been handed the baby in a blanket and got to hold it, even breastfeed it. This baby was part green and had scales. I was really out of it, but it was my baby. I didn't know what this thing was, but I know I had it and it was mine. And I didn't know if I was even impregnated. I didn't even know how, sorry, I didn't know how I was even impregnated, but these things had clearly gotten into my home and made it seem like a dream while they raped me and got me pregnant secretly. As I held this baby, I wanted it. I felt as though it was something that I could love and that was going to love me. And I was surely treated much better than my mother treated me. Devera ended up telling me I couldn't keep this baby. I couldn't have it. We kind of got into an argument. She said I could not keep it because I was 16 years old. She gave other reasons like how I couldn't take care of it. I couldn't feed it. I remember then having to hand the baby to her and crying and being so sad. We're suddenly back in the therapist's office, like just shot back suddenly. I was on the couch now, and Devera asked if I was okay. We spoke a short while. I couldn't really remember what just happened, but our session was now over. I was still out of it, kind of. I went home. I just had a baby stolen from me. Yeah. I ended up falling into a deep depression and becoming very suicidal. I didn't know why, but I did. Devera's baby, quote unquote, was now born, and she one day brought her. Hold on. She one day brought her baby in the car seat and showed it to me. But that really was the baby that I just had, my baby. I believe magic was also done to make me go crazy as well at this time. My mother frequently poisoned my food. I always missed school because of food poisoning, but the stomach sickness and vomiting I also believe was resulting from the pregnancies. I had my first job at 16 at a grocery store, plus a combination of my mother driving me crazy. I ended up drinking. I had someone buy alcohol for me and then I drank it. One day my mother caught me and ended up going crazy and hitting me and like pouring it all over the floor and like just going like berserk. The drinking helped me to relax having to live with her and her crazy behavior. So my dad always said she drove him to drink. So she ended up kicking me out and got mad. I ended up hanging out with some gang members down the street, like Culver City gang, and I could have died. I could have died. They got alcohol so I could drink more, and I got really drunk. Like, I got really drunk for the first time in my life, and I had nowhere to go. I could have got kidnapped or raped. I was like walking in the streets with a gang member and two gang members like at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I ended up like finally just coming home because I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do, and my mother like let me back in and then took me to a mental hospital the next day once I got like home. I was starving at the hospital because I would not eat the food. Like my mother brought me like Subway one day, food one day, but it was awful. It was just horrible. They did not help you when you needed someone to talk to or needed support. It wasn't anything to help you or anything like that. I hated it. I did meet a few friends though. Like Devera came by to visit me one day actually. I know she orchestrated all of this as well as taking that baby from me. And now I'm in a mental hospital. Yeah. I ended up finally being released after 2 weeks. Shortly after that, I was to see my therapist, Devera, but she gave us notification that she was moving to the Bay Area and no longer will be living or working here. I was now out of a therapist and I was sad. At the time I did not know or realize that Devera was working against me and just used me to take a baby from me so she could steal it and keep it as her own. I was forcibly used as a surrogate and given nothing in return or exchange. I ended up trying to join a church to help me because I remember at the time me and my family went to church and how much of a great experience that was. I started going to a Catholic church and trying to get baptized since my mother did not baptize us. I noticed things getting worse in my life, and I later found out that the Catholic Church is tied up with demonic activity and possession. I had many bad, very bad things, scary things happen to me, and I didn't understand why. Um, so age 19 was ovarian cyst, it's alien atomic pregnancy or type of matter. Something happened. Something began to occur at like age 19 where I began to have some painful cramping. I had some painful periods starting at the age of 13, and I used birth control off and on throughout the years, which was also a big cause of my weight gain too. I ended up seeing a gynecologist and they said I had an ovarian cyst. They said they could not remove it because it was not big enough, but it was pretty big. I think because it was causing me, I think it was about 6 centimeter or maybe 6 inch. I can't remember, six something. And it was causing me to wake up in the middle of the night vomiting because the pain was so bad. Like it was at night that this pain would start these spasms and be so severe. So I was basically prescribed medication for pain. I was just given pain medications and the cyst was not removed. So at age 20, the reptilian contact and back to breeding. So I began being abducted frequently at this time, back to back. This is yeah, reptilian contact and back to back breeding. I was on stronger pain medications due to the pain from the cyst and the cyst still being there. During the second abduction, sorry guys, that thing pops up, and if I don't click it, it'll like close this all out. So make sure that um, so basically, during the second, there was an abduction here that occurred, and I this abduction was just so sudden. I asked who these beings were, and I asked where the Greys were. I remember just being like in this room and was being mistreated, and I was like, where are the Greys? Because they were much. I mentioned they were nicer. They were, even though they did torture me, they were way nicer than these reptilians. And basically, he ended up telling me that they were reptilians. He said the Greys were no longer in control, and I was being tortured both physically and psychologically. Uh, this main being doing this is the brown reptilian. That's what I call him, is the brown reptilian. I call him the brown rep. So that's what we'll call him for the remainder of this document. This brown rep, I later found out is a reptilian from Orion. He could be an alpha theton. I believe that's what he may be. He has dark brown scales. He's like dark brown in skin, and then there's like black. The eyes are completely black. But when I had been abducted and he had flashlight, I was able to see blue eyes. This brown reptile has been frequently involved in my abductions. He looks very scary, very hideous, as well as the rest of these demons on this ship. At this time, I had a boyfriend named Doug, and I was also on birth control. We had sex unprotected because I was on the pill. I vividly remember us having sex twice, and then my water breaking and him transporting me up to the ship. He was in some other form once we were on the ship, like a gray alien. I remember being like a short, very short man, and I remember this now because the mind wipe faded away. I had no idea how I was being impregnated with these babies, but over the span of the next years, I was delivering these babies back to back. Every time the babies were delivered, this short gray was beside the bed, and then the brown rep was there delivering the baby as well. Sometimes there would be a midwife, which actually was my art teacher, Miss Murray, in elementary school. She was definitely a reptilian being. A lot of the people around me and working around me were a part of this program. The brown rep would make fun of me and be very evil and very wicked to me. The babies were always immediately taken and then wrapped in a blanket and weighed. They begun to not let me hold the babies or see the babies. That's what the brown rep started to do. He started to become very evil, very mean to me. Every 9 months at this time, I was made to breed a baby. I had to constantly pee, pain in my body, my legs, my stomach, my uterus. It was like I was cattle for real. I could now feel the labors when they set in, and it was terrifying. It was the most pain I've ever felt in my life. The brown rep began to stop giving me epidurals and to make this a nightmare. I hated this ugly, wicked alien and wanted to kill it every single time I was taken, but they had the power to make me unable to move using psychic energy or something. Age 21, given a DNC and abortion. I had a time I was not able to eat. I believe this is from the pregnancy. I just could not eat. I had no idea, even though I was pregnant most of these times. So at the time, I could not eat at all. So I didn't know I was pregnant, of course. I ended up being abducted one night just suddenly. And I just get, I'm on the ship, I'm in this bed, and the brown reptile's there. He's yelling at me. He started yelling about me not eating. I was given some kind of feeding tube. He told me that this baby died that I was pregnant with because I didn't eat, and he was really mad. How is that my fault for not knowing that I was pregnant? So I was held down on the bed, and this midwife was there. This It's like an old white woman with very great. Their hair is all white, pure white, white as snow. The hair is like white as snow. That's what it's like. It's not like silver gray. It's white, like pure white. Um, Sorry. Okay, I had to click that. So click that button away. So basically, I was held down by nothing but her energy. These aliens can just paralyze you by just looking at you. I could not move. She began to stick tools into my vagina and scrape into the inside with something, and I felt the worst pain I ever felt in my life. I cried, I screamed. I was given no pain medication, no sedative. This was done just to torture me, and then I woke up and I was in pain for days, not knowing how or why. And it was not a dream. It all was really occurred. So at age 22, is when I had ovarian cyst surgery. So I had gone through another gynecologist hoping I would get this cyst removed, but I didn't have luck. Then we found Dr. Lerner at Cedar Sinai. She's going to remove it, and it was a miracle. I had suffered for years in pain, and was finally going to get into surgery. Once I got the cyst removed, I was no longer waking up in pain or vomiting because my pain was so bad. I was now able to have a somewhat normal life. We moved from our Culver City house, and we're now living in Hyde Park. My mom found a house. That's Hyde Park, by the way, is kind of near Inglewood a bit in California. It was 3 bedroom though, so of course I didn't get a room because I was the black sheep. It was just another way for my mother to show that I didn't matter. She didn't want me. And I wanted to move away from the wicked bitch anyways, so it didn't matter. She didn't get me a room. But my finances were bad, and of course she made no college fund for us. She actually didn't want us to go to college. Told us we didn't need to. None of that. So my poverty was actually her poverty that I was now suffering. So was my brother. She also expressed college was a waste of time and we just didn't need to go. So age 23 was unknown surgery by aliens. One night I was abducted. I remember this abduction because I was laid on a medical table and it was a white room. I was surrounded by aliens that looked kind of like brown. They had a lighter color. I want to say more of a reddish, brownish color. They had masks on. They had black eyes. Their eyes were black. They were kind of bug-like. I think they might have been the mantis beings that people have spoke about. They kind of looked like they had mantis eyes and mouth, I believe. They had a mask. masks on their face, and then they ended up putting a clear mask over my face, and I was put to sleep. And that's all I remember from that. I suspected they possibly gave me gastric bypass because I was overweight for so long. I got up to 312 pounds at 5'4" because I was so depressed and I didn't care if I lived or died. It took me a while to heal from surgery, so I took that time to heal. The pain finally subsided after it healed. I never was able to lose weight no matter how hard I tried, and I believe they gave me gastric bypass so I could finally lose weight because a lot of this weight gain resulted from the pregnancies with these babies causing so much hunger. Age 24, was losing weight and giving it to God. I had a lot of health issues and complications from these alien pregnancies. Many of the babies died and passed away because of the medications I was on for blood pressure, the antipsychotics, antidepressants, etc. I guess the brown reptile was getting mad now that these babies were dying. I never knew I was pregnant anyways. The psychotropic medicines were being used to dull my memory. At this time, I was completely stopped taking them and I was fine without them. I never had a mental illness anyways. That was my sick mother and grandmother putting that label onto me. They were the ones that were mentally sick. My grandmother's hoarding got worse. The house was so filthy. I never wanted to spend the night there to get away and get a break from I never wanted to stay there. So something changed within me where I was ready to make big changes in my life. I was 312 pounds, suicidal, trying to kill myself with food and on pain medication for pain due to pain being so severe. I'd prayed to God for years, but nothing ever changed or got better. I was still being abused by my mother and living with her over the age of 18. I never had a serious boyfriend because I was fat. Guys only wanted to have sex with me. And my mother prevented me having a lot of friends at school and outside of school. She also destroyed my confidence. So that would make it like, oh, you have no friends. So my brother was 2 years older than me and still living with her, and I was two. She did not want us to move and live on our own. She told me I would never get married and I would never have a future without her. She just wanted me to live on SSI disability and told me that I would lose my money if I got married. She never told me how to get my own place or even try to work to help me and my brother get our own place so that we could move away from her. Instead, she constantly complained about me living there and how much of a burden I was living with her. I decided to try to call out to God to change things for me. I ended up finally getting the discipline I needed to lose weight and to get in shape. I started off eating takeout only once a week, and then walking. I had no car at the time and had to walk to get to the bus. I started a garden with the space we had at the house and growing vegetables to eat that I had never tried before, but they were really good. I felt like because they were grown, I think that's made them taste good. But I forced myself to kind of like them, to be honest. But honestly, they were making me really sick. I kept going in and out of the ER. I was getting like kidney stones, but they would always say they didn't see a stone or there wasn't a stone, so that they didn't have to give me pain medication, and it was all due to like eggplants, calcium oxalate. So, um, but I ended up, finally losing weight and able to push through the pain to work out. I feel this was when God entered my life. Like I was never supposed to be a beast. That was my mother who did a lot of that because she was so jealous of me, working to get me obese, make me fat, and working to, she would buy me all kind of fattening foods. She would buy me just garbage. That's all she would buy. She didn't, it was horrible. So I finally lost 60 pounds. I started off like, eating healthy, just take out once a week. And I got down to 260 pounds, started to feel better about myself. And something was released with my weight loss as well. I feel like years of pain and oppression. I never imagined what would come up against me after I finally lost weight and how terrible my life would become instead of getting better. Something was triggered and released with this weight loss. I think I was doing pretty good with my weight loss and losing weight in a healthy fashion, not to fast or anything like that. I wasn't following a diet, but more whole foods and like not eating takeout. So I decided I wanted to date and I went online. I never had a serious boyfriend, but I saw an ad for a long term relationship with a BBW, a big, beautiful woman, which is what I was. I always wanted to have a live in boyfriend and tried to find one for years, but ended up getting like used for sex. And I was trying to escape my mother's house in like any way I can, and like hoping I could live with a guy to get away from her. But it didn't end up working out like that. So my mother ended up like marrying my father to get away from my abusive grandmother, but preventing me from doing the same. So, especially by destroying my confidence in my weight so that she could have control over me and keep me living with her forever. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to post this and I'm going to get into the second part. So I'm going to make sure that this uploads. So let me go ahead and we're going to get into the age 25. So we're going to go ahead and stop this at 30 minutes. So this is part 2 of everything here. Go to my live if you want the part 1. This is part 2.